There are millions of podcasts being done all over the world that take on the personalities of their creator. Some bring in thousands of listeners each week. Some bring in large amounts of revenue, while others entertain millions and help sell products. If you're like many podcasters, you want to reach your maximum potential. But how? How do you make your podcast stand out from all the rest? Join Dr. Barrett Matthews as he talks to experts who are doing it on The Productive Podcaster. Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Productive Podcaster. I am your host, Dr. Barrett Matthews, and I want to thank you for joining me today. For those of you who are joining me for the first time, if you're joining me for many times, one thing I want you to do is share this with everyone right now. Let everyone know you're listening to The Productive Podcaster. Of course, they can listen to it on iTunes, on Google Podcasts, on Stitcher, on Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and they can watch us on YouTube as some of you are doing right now. So make sure you share it with everybody, The Productive Podcaster. Now, what is this podcast about? Well, this podcast is for podcasters already in existence and potential podcasters. If you have questions about what you're doing, you're thinking, am I doing it right? Should I be doing it this way? Or if you're saying, I want to start a podcast, but I want to get it right. I don't know if I should do this or that. Well, this show is here to show you that there is no cookie cutter way. All of my guests have different ways of doing podcasts. Some of them just contribute to the podcast industry, but we're here to help you to get your podcast going. So as I start off each show, I like to do a segment I call Pros and Cons.
Pros and Cons.
Now, what is pros and cons, you ask? Well, I'm glad you asked that. Pros and Cons is a segment where I give you some tips, some pointers to help you become a pro when it comes to podcasting. Well, the tip we have for you today in Pros and Cons is make sure that you have a good show idea. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, you want to have a podcast topic that you can talk about for days. You want to have a podcast topic that doesn't run dry. See, here's the thing. If, let's say, for instance, we're talking about the quote-unquote pandemic that we have now in the world. Well, when the pandemic is gone, do you have something to talk about? One of my guests we had a while ago, he was a medical doctor, and he talked about healing. Well, he said he talks about the pandemic now, but he also knows that when it's gone, he can still talk about healing because people have other things they can heal from. But do you have a topic that you can talk about and that you can monetize and make that work for you when it comes down to it? So that is pros and cons for today. Make sure you pick a great killer topic that people will love listening to. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break. I have a very special guest. You know, I always have great special guests on The Productive Podcaster, but this one is close to me, so I want to make sure that you all are here. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after this message.
You've heard the rumblings. You've even thought of starting your own. But how? Everybody knows podcasting is the fastest and best way to get your message out and grow your business all at once. Although everybody knows this, nobody showed you what to do. Well, Podcast Nation is ready to do all the heavy lifting for you while you just deliver your message and grow. Join the nation and start your podcast today. Text podcast to 929-244-4323 and make them hear your voice.
Do you hear what I hear? That's the sound of your tribe, your audience, your people. That's the sound of your nation. The people who love to hear the sound of your voice as you bring your special message to them in your very own podcast. How do you get it to them? Let us handle that. We're Podcast Nation, and we make sure they hear your voice. Podcast Nation is a full-service podcasting firm that does all the hard work for you so you can be the talent and get your message to your people. Just text podcast to 929-244-4323 and talk to one of our staff on how you can get started with your very own done-for-you podcast. Or just go to podcastnation.com and get started today. That's PODCAST nation.com. Your people are waiting on you. Make them hear your voice. Podcast Nation.
everybody, welcome back to the Productive Podcaster. I am Dr. Barrett Matthews. As I told you, I had a great guest who was special to me. Why is she special? Because I have been working with this young lady, and I love working with her. She has a great attitude. She loves to learn, and she is the host of a fantastic podcast called Where Minds Meet. I love the podcast. I love the idea, and we're going to have her talk about it. So I'm going to introduce her by one name and one name only, and that is Shawntel. Shawntel, welcome to the Productive Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Barrett.
I'm messing with her about the one name only. I said she's like,
right.
She's like Madonna. She only needs one name, like Prince. You know, she only needs one name.
Right, exactly. All the greats, right?
You want to know something else? That's none of your business. So we go. So let's talk about your podcast. Where Minds.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, because here's the thing. This podcast is for people that want to put on podcasts, or some have podcasts and it may not be working for them, and they have different questions. Mm-hmm. So first of all, tell them about Where Minds Meet, what the concept of it is.
Where Minds Meet is basically anything that we think of. So it's myself, the host, and then I actually was trying to find a few more co-hosts, but we'll talk about that later, how difficult it is. People say they want a podcast, and then when the opportunity presents to them, they kind of get cold feet. So I've kind of been coaching and talking to me. I'm like, it'll be okay. You'll get through it. But anyway, so Where Minds Meet is, I didn't want, and I'm glad you spoke about pros and cons about topics, because I didn't want to just hone in on one thing and then be stuck there. So I wanted something that I knew we could just talk about any and everything, because just anything that you can think of. When I first started, I remember pitching it to you and saying, I don't know what we're going to talk about, but it could be anywhere from kids to sex. And you were like, okay, you might want to put that one at nighttime. And I'm like, oh no, it just won't be about that, and I don't even think we've been live since June. I don't think we've actually just spoken on one particular subject. It's mostly talk therapy. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. And that's why it's anything that we think of that is either something that we're dealing with, something that we heard, just airing it all out. Yeah, and that's basically it.
I love that, because this is why I wanted to have you as a guest, because one, like you said, we talked about that, and I love the idea that you can talk about different topics and you have other people come in. That's why the title, Where Minds Meet. And I love that concept, because see, what I was looking for, and like I said, you and I work together, and I tell people, you want to do something that's going to grab the audience's attention. And it's not, I hate to say it, mine is done pretty average. I'm interviewing guests, but yours is a little different. And it's not necessarily the only one that does it, but it's something that's thinking differently than everyone else. Hey, let me get other people to come in, and you can have different guests every week to come in and talk about a different topic. Yeah, I do want to ask you. You mentioned about talking about topics. I said you may want to talk about it at night. What would you say is the most fun topic you've discussed on your show?
Relationships. Relationships, dating during COVID.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Dating during COVID. Not that I myself have experienced that, but the guy on my show, Sean, he said it's just null and void. It's not happening. No one is really dating during COVID.
Yeah, well,
how are you going to meet people? And then people look very different when they take the mask off. So all of this up here, you're like, hey, you so fat. And then you take that mask off, you're like, oh, yeah. Like, oh, yeah, so it was hi, bye. One of those kind of situations. So, yeah, he basically just relationships, just relationships and the woes of relationships, especially right now. Oh, my God, it's just people are this is just the most stressful time that I know, and depressing time that I have seen in my 40 plus years.
Yeah. Now,
so,
let me ask you, as far as getting your podcast started, well, because you're still a relatively new podcast.
Yes.
What
Yes.
challenges did you come across as far as just getting going?
Just getting going, just being comfortable, just being confident, being okay with the mistakes that, you know, are going to be made, that have been made, and thankful that we have a producer and a team that can edit it, you know. So it's just those things I don't have to think about. Those things I don't have to focus on, but just getting started and being comfortable, I would say, being comfortable knowing that it's okay. It's okay. You're here for you did this for a reason. Just remember why you did it, why you wanted to do it, because you thought it would be fun. You thought it would be, you thought you had something that other people needed to hear you talk about. And again, it's therapeutic. Sean says it all the time. That's like my co-host, one of the co-hosts. He says it all the time. He's just like, thank you. This is so therapeutic for me. And I think he's ready to start his own podcast.
Yeah, you told me. So. And see, the thing is, that's good to hear, though. See, look, it's your podcast, but it warms my heart to know that you're doing something. To hear someone say it's therapeutic is big, especially during the COVID times. That's big. Because there's so much, like you said, it's depressing time. There are people who are going through a lot emotionally and mentally. And to know that your podcast, even if it's your co-host, but to know that it's actually helping someone. That's big. That's huge. I mean, congratulations on that. Thank you. That's really good. Man, that means a lot. Now, you mentioned something a minute ago, and especially for those of you who are thinking about doing a podcast, I hope you were paying attention and taking notes of what she said. You said going through the mistakes that will happen. That will happen. Right. and they will continue to happen. That's why, I mean, even when filming, it's take 1, take 2, take 3. You know what I mean? It will definitely happen. That's for sure. And they will. And see, here's the one thing I've noticed about mistakes when you're broadcasting. I've been in media for a long time. People like to see you just be you. Yeah, I agree. And I had to be okay with that, because you think you have to put on this, like, oh my goodness, should I be professional? Should I not be professional? Should I be quirky, funny? Just nope. If you have to think about it, then it's not genuine. Just be. There you go. Just be you. Yeah. Because the thing is, your audience is going to be your audience. Right. They want to know you are you. And if you're trying to be someone else, it'll come across that way that you're trying to be. It will come across that way, and then at some point in time, you'll remember to get back to who you are, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, who is this person? I don't know this person. You know what I mean? Yeah. Now, has there been a show that you've done where you just wish you could have back? Yeah, there's one show. I don't remember the name, the title of that show, but I just remember, man, not even the whole show. Right. I just remember, man, why did I say that? And I have to say this about you, and I can say this because I know you. You are so critical of yourself. Oh my gosh, yeah. That is so true. You ask so much, and I tell you, Shawntel, just relax, be you. It's okay. It's not a big problem. That is so true. I mean, and that's just not the podcast. It's just me in general, my life. I'm just so funny. And see, here's the thing. You're new at podcasting. And you still got a podcast. Like I said, it's already touching people. That's a great thing. Yeah. So, and you're new at it. There's going to come a point where you're going to make a mistake and you're not going to care anymore. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'm waiting. Seriously, I'm waiting to get to that point, Bear. And then the other thing is, so yes, I have co-hosts now, but there is a pressing on me to just have it, to just speak myself, to just be this, but I can't figure out how to go. So I've listened to some that are like 7 minutes, 14 minutes. I'm like, how the hell do I talk for 30 minutes to myself? You're not talking to yourself. You're talking to your audience. We've had people on here who have said that they do one every week, and 3 weeks they have guests, and 1 week is just them.
1 week it's just them. I'm trying to get comfortable with
We'll talk about that.
Yeah. But I love having dialogue with the co-host. I love listening.
And that's what I wanted to ask you. How many co-hosts do you have on? What's the most you've had on at one time?
So the most I've had on at one time is three co-hosts.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the max. I've wanted more. So there was another male that I had on, but he just couldn't commit. He had a lot of things going on, which was fine. Because he would jump on here and there if I needed just myself, and he would do it, if I needed to. Sometimes, oh my gosh, life takes over and I miss a week or two and I have to play catch up, and I have to find someone to catch up with. So he'll fill in. But yeah, I love having them on, and I've asked a number of people, hey, you want to jump on? People that I see, certain things that they post, certain things that they post, and they're just on Facebook, just talking. But then when I say, hey, you want to jump on the podcast? They're like, like literally, it is the hour, to the hour. And they're like, no.
Are you serious?
Yes. I've had at least 5 people do that. Yep.
Really?
Yeah. So the 2 co-hosts that I have been on with me from the beginning. They're the only 2 that have committed to it. Yeah.
Well, here, I'm going to give you a little tip here. This is for all of you listening right now. If you have a guest that commits to being on the show, keep sending them stuff about the show. Hey, we're looking forward to you. Keep following up with them so that by the time it gets to the show, they're like, look, I got to do this.
Yeah. I actually had one guy, and he was really sincere. He's just like, I think your podcast is really going to be big. And he's like, I'm just a low key person. He just get me.
He did the old, let me flatter you to get myself out. Huh? Gotcha.
Exactly. I'm like,
it's not you, it's me.
And I'm like, we're not there yet. So can you just?
He said it's gonna be big. Okay, so I need you to help me get it big.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah,
that's fun. Now we're gonna have some fun now, as if we haven't been doing it all along.
Right.
But the thing is, there is a candle behind you.
This is my first time using a background, and I said, let me promote my candle company by putting a candle in the background. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, there is a candle behind me. This candle is actually called Yin and Yang, and you can find it on my website, www.flickawick.com.
And you promote it on your podcast.
Yes, I have promoted it. I need to do a commercial for it. I understand it needs to be at least 30 to 60 seconds long. I just haven't figured out again how to extend 30 to 60 seconds.
But see, the thing is, it's great that you are. Because the thing is, she asked me before we came on, is it okay to have it back? Because this is my business. I'm like, well, you use it on your podcast. Of course, it's great, because I want people to understand that if you're doing a podcast, whether it's audio or video, you should be promoting yourself on your podcast.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. You did say that. Like, yeah, it's yours.
Yeah, it's yours. I mean, you should do that. You definitely should do that. We'll talk about that some more too in another segment. But I wanted to have you tell the people, if someone is looking to start a podcast right now, and they have all these apprehensions about doing it, all these nervous things about it, what would you say to them?
Just do it. Don't think about the negative. Don't focus on why, because the why you shouldn't. Just focus on why you want to. Because the why you shouldn't will deter you and will make you feel afraid. And I mean, I would just say, just do it. I've literally been sitting on this idea that I wanted to do a podcast, and COVID has brought up a lot of podcasters, but I've been sitting on this idea since 2018. Actually, I actually have the Podcast for Dummies book. I was doing all this stuff, but just do it. Just do it. It doesn't. I mean, if if within a month or so you don't feel comfortable, then it's not for you. But I guarantee, I'm not going to say I guarantee because don't hold me to it, but you'll like it. You'll enjoy it, and of course you'll have to fit it into your schedule, your already busy schedule, but you'll love it. And 30 minutes go, oh my gosh, 30 minutes is the limit, is the least, sorry, not the limit, but that 30 minutes goes by so fast. And we're always like, that's it? It's time up already? It goes by so fast. So yeah, just do it. Just 30 minutes out of your time once a week, and you'll love it. You'll love it. You'll like it. Other people will like it. You have something. Obviously, if you want to start a podcast, you have an idea that you feel as if someone needs to hear you speak about. So just do it.
Yeah. So Shawntel, I want to thank you so much for joining us on a productive podcast. And now here's the thing. You can check out her podcast, Where Minds Meet, on Google, on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Spotify, on TuneIn, on iHeartRadio. You can find it on all those places. So make sure you check out Where Minds Meet. As a matter of fact, subscribe today.
Yes, please. Thank you.
And share to everyone. Make sure that people know how big this podcast is going to be. Where Minds Meet.
Yes.
Make sure you do that. So guys, we're going to be right back with more of Shawntel as we take on our next segment, PodQuest, right after this message.
You've heard the rumblings. You even thought about starting your own. But how? Everybody knows podcasting is the fastest and best way to get your message out and grow your business all at once. Although everybody knows this, nobody showed you what to do. Well, Podcast Nation is ready to do all the heavy lifting for you while you just deliver your message and grow. Join the nation and start your podcast today. Text podcast to 929-244-4323 and make them hear your voice.
Do you hear what I hear? That's the sound of your tribe, your audience, your people. That's the sound of your nation. The people who love to hear the sound of your voice as you bring your special message to them in your very own podcast. How do you get it to them? Let us handle that. We're Podcast Nation, and we make sure they hear your voice. Podcast Nation is a full-service podcasting firm that does all of the hard work for you so that you can be the talent and get your message to your people. Just text podcast to 929-244-4323 and talk to one of our staff on how you can get started with your very own done-for-you podcast. Or go to podcastnation.com and get started today. That's PODCAST nation.com. Your people are waiting on you. Make them hear your voice. Podcast Nation.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Productive Podcast. I told you we were going to have some fun. I had a ball with Shawntel, and guess what, guys?
Yes.
She's still here. She is still here. So we're time for one of my favorite segments of the show, which is called PodQuest.
PodQuest.
PodQuest. I like it.
PodQuest.
Like it.
You like PodQuest?
Yeah, I like it.
Okay. PodQuest. So PodQuest is where you, the audience members, get to ask a question, and Shawntel and I are going to answer that question. So the question that we have here is, I am not good at talking to large companies and getting sponsorship. What do I do to get someone to sponsor my show? So Shawntel, I'll let you take the question first.
Sure. I mean, as we were talking off air, you yourself should be your biggest sponsor. So if you have your own podcast, have you sponsored your product or whatever it is that you have you yourself put it out there on your podcast?
Yeah.
And where else are you putting it? Where else are you marketing?
Yeah, that's a great answer. And the thing is, what I say to you with the question is that you don't have to go after the big companies right away.
Right. Yeah, that's very true.
You have local businesses that would love to be a sponsor. Have you talked to them? Because the thing about the local businesses is that they probably don't want to pay the terrestrial radio stations for airtime.
Yeah.
It can be quite pricey. But they may be willing to pay you to advertise on your podcast. So I would suggest putting together something that you can present to them about being a sponsor on your podcast. And the more you get, guess what? The more it will cost them to get space on your podcast. And you can then, guess what? Some of the bigger companies will be interested in you because they'll say, hey, people are advertising on this podcast and it's becoming popular. They may want to join. They may come to you. No, that's my answer to that. So that is PodQuest for today. So I want to thank my guest, Shawntel, for joining us, guys. Once again, make sure you subscribe to the podcast.
Please, yes. And share. Right. Subscribe now, share now. Where Minds Meet. Like I said, you can catch her on iTunes. You can go to Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, iHeart. Check her out. You're going to love it. Where Minds Meet. Shawntel, once again, thank you so much for joining us. No, it was a blast. Thank you. I had a ball. Yeah.
Good. Thank you so much. Yeah. So, guys, it's time for the next segment of our show. It's time for our next segment of the show, and that is the podcast profile. So let's talk about the podcast profile. This is where I bring up a podcast that I've listened to that I think you might enjoy as well. And that podcast is called Tim Pool Daily Show. That's right, the Tim Pool Daily Show. I recommend you guys check it out. It's by a guy named, guess what, Tim Pool. And what he does, he actually takes international stories, U.S. stories, other countries, Europe, Asia, different news stories, and he talks about them on his podcast, the Tim Pool Daily Show. I recommend you guys check it out. It's a great, great show. So also, it's time for our giveaway. That's right. It's time for the giveaway. Today, I'm giving away an audio copy of my best-selling book, Why Didn't You Get It Done? You get an audio copy of my book, Why Didn't You Get It Done? And today, that goes to Divya Gupta. Divya Gupta, you get a copy of my book, Why Didn't You Get It Done? Congratulations and thank you. Now, you're probably wondering two questions I always get. How come I don't get to ask a question? Or how can I get one of the giveaways? Well, there's an easy answer to both those questions. Easy answer. Go to Facebook and join the Productive Podcaster Facebook group. That's right. Go to Facebook and join the Productive Podcaster Facebook group. And then we may pull your name out as a giveaway, and we may ask your question on air. So hopefully you will do that. So guys, it is time for one of my favorite parts of the show again. Yeah, I got a lot of favorite parts of my show. And that is Pod Quote, because we're going to give you a quote, a productive quote for you to go for the rest of your day. And I hope you enjoy this quote. And it is, the elegance under pressure is the result of fearlessness. The elegance under pressure is the result of fearlessness. And that is by Ashish Patel. Ashish Patel, great quote. The elegance under pressure is the result of fearlessness. So, guys, that wraps up another episode of the Productive Podcast. And once again, guys, share this, subscribe. Make sure you're subscribing and make sure you share. And, of course, you can listen to us on iTunes, on Google, on Spotify, on Stitcher, on iHeartRadio, and TuneIn. I recommend that you guys do that. Make sure that you share. And also, you can watch us on YouTube. Make sure that you subscribe and share to the Productive Podcaster. I want to make sure you guys are part of our community, so join our Facebook group as well. And we look forward to seeing and hearing from you again. I want to thank my guests for joining me again, Shawntel. And as I say, guys, before I end every show, don't just settle for being awesome. Set your goal to all them all. And take action, everybody. We'll see you next time on the Productive Podcaster. Thank you for joining us on the Productive Podcaster. Be sure to join us next time for another great show. We welcome your engagement, so make sure you participate by joining the Productive Podcaster Facebook group and chime in. Also, share the Productive Podcaster with some of your friends right now. If you have a podcast and you're looking for guests, or if you would like to be a guest on a podcast, join our podcast exchange at www.podcastworlddirectory.com. We'll see you next time.